After weeks of searching for a French Provincial style dresser that would fit my bedroom, I was lucky to find this little lady listed for free on Facebook Marketplace. What do you think, Mo? What do you think? After a quick inspection from my supervisor, I was ready to start working. Was I? Was I ready? I wasn't ready. So let's take a beat to talk about what needs to happen to this dresser. 1, we have to remove the remaining nails from the drawer fronts. 2, we have to clean her inside and outside. 3, we have to prime her. 4, paint. 5, seal. We also have to rehab the hardware. And then lastly, and our favorite, enjoy the dresser of our free Facebook Marketplace streams. No problem, right? Super easy. Great. So excited. Let's get started. Okay, so here she is in all her before glory. I had hoped that she would be real wood inside and out, but instead I had gotten myself a particle board plastic cardboard dresser. I may refer to the particle board as wood throughout this video, but we both know what I mean. The previous owner of the dresser had tried to upcycle, rehab, or give some kind of makeover to her, but he decided against it. He ultimately decided that it was too much work. Definitely some cosmetic issues and some functionality issues. So one of the issues is that some of the drawers have drawer glides on them and some of them don't. 4 out of the 6 drawers have the original glide in them. See, look at here. There used to be a design feature here. I'll insert a bureau that has the original, but most likely this drawer and this drawer were like up here. This one was up here, so they're side by side, but he started taking that off. I know he sanded the sides. You can see he started sanding here, and he said it was just a much bigger project than he was willing to undertake, which is why it was free. Okay, so we've got the drawer glides that we have to put in. We have to do some filling of wood. Definitely have to clean these handles because that's really gross. Look at that. It is gunky. Okay, here's a bit of a better view. It is not screwed in there with like a regular screw. I'm not even sure what that is. It's some kind of, I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure a way to punch that out without breaking it. And you can see the high quality right here. I should probably fix that. I don't even know if I can. Maybe it's just gonna be some kind of filler or something. And you can see I was trying to get the smell out by throwing a mothball in there. So after further assessment, we're going to have to amend the to-do list and fix the 2 drawer slides on those 2 drawers. Okay, so I already cleaned the inside. I vacuumed it and I wiped it all down. I have to clean the outside with crud cutter. I keep wanting to say crud clutter, which, yeah, that would be something else. So I'm going to get some gear on and I guess start cleaning this lady. My assistant, thank you for all your support. You'll notice that I alternate between calling Coconut my assistant and my supervisor. It really just depends on what role she's playing in my life that day. I do not think I can emphasize enough how much cleaning has to happen when you're upcycling old furniture. I'm sure you've watched as many makeovers as I have, and I don't feel like they talk about how many times they have to clean it. Literally 1,000. I know people abuse the word literally, but it does feel like I cleaned it 1,000 times. Oh, look, more crud. I used the original crud cutter. I did not use the one that is made for furniture. It has a special ingredient. I don't remember what it's called, but I was a little afraid of it, honestly. And this project is not so serious. I'm not reselling this dresser. I didn't feel like I needed to go nuclear on it. But yeah, most of it came off. I'm gonna have to sand as part of the prep process. Oh yeah, be careful. In case it gets on your particle board, it's gonna swell up like it did there for me. So maybe don't let it sit that long, or be more careful with the edges, because I wasn't. I think it looks pretty good. Oh my God, do you see like the little finger juices? Yeah, that's cute. That is, I guess that falls under the umbrella of crud. Armed with a shocking amount of self-confidence, ignorance, hammer, and a screwdriver, I set about removing the hardware. As gently as possible, I used the screwdriver to hammer out the drawer pulls. I alternated between each side of the pull so that I would reduce the chances of splitting the wood. Alternating is good practice for installation of drawer pulls and hinges as well. Okay, so I removed the hardware. I'm not familiar with this type of attachment style. Just avoidant and anxious, really. I'm not sure which one that is. Probably secure, because it was really in there good. That was a joke for people that have read that book. I was talking with my dad about the drawer pull situation. Hey Dad, if you're watching, hey. And we think that the previous owner had removed the screws from the back of the drawer pull, and that over time the particle board had swollen around the hardware, which is why it was so hard to get out and why I didn't recognize it, because I'm used to seeing the screws in there, but they had already been removed. This is round 3 of cleaning the dresser, and I'm using Crud Cutter again. The alternative was called Crud Cutter Pre-Paint Cleaner TSP Substitute. It is more intense, like it'll take your skin off intense, and it's more expensive than the OG Crud Cutter. Maybe this was a mistake, but regular Crud Cutter seemed to work just fine. I've successfully removed all of the hardware. I'm hoping that cleaning the hardware will bring it back to the color that appears on the backside. More on that later in the video. The next step is filling all of the holes in the wood. To fill the holes, I used this plastic wood all-purpose wood filler. I dabbed the wood filler on all of the holes, making sure to fill them before I wiped away the excess. I'm wiping it off with a dry towel. Once the wood has been filled, I wipe away the extra wood filler before it has time to set. Once the wood filler set, I started the task of sanding the dresser. There are several parts of this makeover where I took some liberties, and sanding is one of them. You'll notice that I'm hand sanding the dresser and that I'm not removing the plastic veneer or coating from the dresser. Why? Well, number 1, I don't have the space. Number 2, I don't have the equipment. And number 3, I think the plastic coating is actually protecting the particle board from, becoming particles again. If I remove this layer through proper sanding, I'll be left with a pile of wood chips and sawdust, which is definitely not the vibe. I did a little research, and while everyone says that I must sand, a few people said that I'll be okay if I use the right primer. To cover my bases, I'm doing both. So I did some light sanding. I'm using the, just some sandpaper. It's the 100C grit. I just asked the guy at the hardware store. I just told him what I was doing and that's what he recommended. So I just went over it so that like when I rub my fingers over the surface, I don't feel anything raised. After I gave the entire dresser a light sanding and the swelled wood a heavier sanding so that it would lay flat, I was ready to clean the dresser again. If you're playing along at home, this is the 4th time that I have cleaned the dresser. While cleaning the dresser is tedious, I want to make sure that the primer is applied to a smooth surface and doesn't trap any remaining dust, debris, or other gunk underneath it. Let's say a hair gets trapped in the primer of the dresser. I could accidentally cover it with layers of paint and sealer, which could lead to a Jurassic Park mosquito in the amber type situation, and nobody wants that. Hold on a second. Has anyone seen Coco? Excuse me? Did you do this? Did you chew that? Coconut. She seems fine, so let's get back to work. Now that the dresser has been cleaned, filled, cleaned, sanded, cleaned, I think we're ready to prime. This is a water-based primer. I'll list all of the products I used in the description box below. According to my bestie at the hardware store and the internet, this primer will serve as a binding agent for the paint. I started covering the entire dresser with the primer using a foam roller, especially made for furniture. The foam roller promised a better, smoother finish than a traditional paint roller, and honestly, it was super fun to use. Something about the foam made rolling the paint on a much more pleasurable experience. While the first coat of primer appeared to dry really quickly, I did some more research to make sure I was giving the primer enough time to set between coats. I waited about 12 hours and then started work on the second coat of primer. I needed 2 coats to fully cover the gold accents, wood, and wood filler. Needless to say, this transformation took between 7 and 10 days, so I finished more than one podcast while working on it. We're waiting for the primer to dry. It's pretty dry right now. It's been, I don't know, an hour or so. I'm not loving that I can see some imperfections in the wood. I don't know how much I can do about that. I'm gonna try sanding it down. I sanded a couple of them to get the some little bumpies out, and I gave everybody a little bit of a sanding. I'm gonna do one more pass and then I'm gonna clean for, I don't know, the 4th time maybe. And then I'm gonna finish, I'm gonna go back in with the primer and just touch up some of the spots that I sanded. And hopefully that'll look better.
Firefighter, you know? Go on, yeah. You're right.
Little update, I could still see the glue. See the shadow of the glue that is, I cannot feel it with my finger, but I see it with my eyes. So I put some wood filler on the front of this one, and I started sanding it down in the hopes that I could conceal that glue line. You see it. I mean, you have eyes as well, probably. Yeah, I'm gonna sand it a little more and then go over it with the primer and see if that camouflaged it. Wish me luck. Is that what a professional would do? Put some wood filler on top? I don't know. I will let you know when I'm a professional. I decided to work on the hardware while I waited for the primer to dry. I'm gonna make a little mixture of vinegar and water, and then we're gonna boil it and see what kind of funk comes off of these things. I know people like to say like patina, but girl, this is crusty. This is crusty. I'm going to start saying other words other than patina because that word is being overused and abused. So I'm going to do 1 part vinegar and 1 part water, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. Water. I put these ladies in here and let it boil for a few minutes and see what kind of junk comes off. Yeah, just to make sure they're fully submerged. Okay, so I let it boil for, oh my God, maybe like 10 minutes. And this is what we've got. Still got a lot of gunk on it. Jumping in for past me, because at this point I went to the hardware store and bought a wire brush, hoping that I could use it to remove the white gunk, revealing a pretty brass gold-colored metal. Yeah, that didn't work out the way I had hoped, as I went too hard on the hardware and was left with gray metal, some white stuff, and some brassy gold. So we're going to get crafty with this one. I'm going to use every DIYer's favorite rub and buff to achieve my desired look. Perhaps if this dresser was real wood and a quality construction, I would invest in antique or vintage hardware, but it's not that serious. After 2 coats of primer, the dresser looks completely white. And if you're a cottagecore or a farmhouse style girly, you're screaming, "Oh my God, it looks great, don't paint it." But I'm not this type of girl, so you know we're gonna be painting it black. Before painting, I did a scratch test with the primer. It's like it sounds. I tried scratching the primer off the dresser to see if it had properly adhered, and to my relief, it didn't come off. I ended up doing 3 to 4 coats of black paint, cleaning between each coat in the event that any dust, hair, lint, or something else landed on the dresser or the drawers while we waited for it to dry. When painting the top of the dresser and the drawer fronts, it was really important to paint with a wet edge. A wet edge means not letting the paint dry on one patch before you start painting the section next to it. You want to overlap wet paint with wet paint. By keeping a wet edge, you'll make sure sections of the paint blend together. If you let a section dry and then go back to it with wet paint, you'll see a line, and your wall or your furniture will have a streak where the old dry paint and the new wet paint meet. It was a bit warm in my apartment, so when I was painting the top of the dresser, I was trying to work as quickly as possible while making sure to overlap the roller marks. Each coat of paint seemed to raise the stakes, as the imperfections would show in ways that they didn't in the first 2 coats of paint. I waited 48 hours before applying the sealer. I had used a black paint that I already had called Tricorn Black. I think it's Sherwin-Williams, so it's not a furniture paint. I watched some YouTube videos about latex paint and plastic particle board furniture, and it seemed as though applying a primer and a sealer would ensure that this paint gripped the dresser and wouldn't peel or scratch off over time. I applied the sealer to the surface of the dresser with a foam roller. Since the sealer went on unevenly, I rolled over it again with my roller at a 45-degree angle to fill in the spots. There were also small bubbles in the sealer once it was applied, so I did my best to remove them by lightly going over the drawer front with the foam roller. In future coats, I found that applying the sealer with the foam roller, then lightly going over the bubbles with a sponge brush, removed the bubbles. I just needed to go over them with a smooth, consistent pink stroke so as not to create streaks in the sealer. The more coats of sealer, the more this mattered. After letting the sealer set for a few days, it was time to reinstall the hardware. My supervisor was there to lend me a paw as I banged these bad boys back into place, much to the delight of my neighbor, I'm sure. If I have to listen to him singing along to sob rock, he has to listen to my DIYs. And just like that, we're ready for the reveal. Here's a reminder of what she looked like before. You ready? This was my first time working with furniture to this level. I learned a lot, mostly that I don't think I want to do it again. That being said, I am pretty happy with the final result. I listed my supplies and other resources below, but if I missed something that you're looking for, comment and I'll respond. Probably. If you liked this video, give it a like and subscribe and come back for more DIYs, thrifting, and other interior design content. On that note, I'll see you later. Bye!